So hi, I'm Bertrand Maltaverne, analyst at Spend Matters, and today I have the great pleasure to be talking to Keith Hartley, the, let's say, relatively new CEO of LevaData. So maybe first, Keith, can you tell a bit about, yourself, who you are, and how you came to the role you have today, and about also what LevaData does?
Sure thing, Bertrand. Thanks for hosting today. I came to LevaData about 4 months ago, but I've been involved with supply chain and procurement for the better part of over 20 years now. I'm really at the intersection of data and using data to make better decisions. Most of my career has been helping ERP companies and supply chain companies and procurement companies tap into data and how to use data to improve decision making. And I'm thrilled to be bringing that forward with LevaData. At LevaData, we take information and data and synthesize it for customers so that they can make the best decisions possible for their direct material spend. So excited to join LevaData. It's an exciting time in all things procurement and supply chain, and I'm thrilled to be leading the charge for LevaData.
Yeah, cool stuff. So data is really pretty much very important for your business and the value you deliver. And it's basically the topic we want to explore today. It relates to data. And one thing we can say around data and procurement is that it's not a new challenge for procurement. We've heard you and myself being for since years in the procurement profession or around procurement professionals, that data is a recurrent issue. And they often basically mention data is some kind of roadblock or at best a challenge in their digitalization effort. So maybe Keith, what can you say about data? And I know you have a way to call and describe the situation around the decision abyss. So maybe it would be interesting to understand a bit more what you mean by that.
Yeah, one of the complex challenges that I have witnessed many manufacturers face over the past few decades is what I've coined and I'm calling the decision abyss. And this is a situation that exists in almost all manufacturing companies. And it's essentially where the procurement function, the supply chain function, particularly supply chain planning, and the product teams that are bringing new products to market, responsible for products, struggle to obtain and find the insights that they need to actually make better, more informed decisions. Oftentimes, these teams are tasked with reducing cost or ensuring supply continuity or de-risking elements of their supply chain. But these three functions, procurement, supply chain, and product teams, don't have a common language and a common way to collaborate and sort of attack the problem, if you will. And so this decision abyss exists where they don't collaborate and communicate effectively inside of their company, and they don't make the best, most informed decisions to reduce complexity or risk in their supply chain and also reduce cost for the direct materials that they're sourcing. So, in today's world, this decision abyss exists. And really, what I would say the remedy for the decision abyss is good contextualized data. And so what that means, and let me define that, that's taking a lot of different data that doesn't make sense, on its own and blending it with a lot of different types of data and that allows a decision maker, someone in procurement or someone in supply chain, to make better, more informed decisions. I mean, data is at the heart of the data abyss problem. Nowhere was that seen greater than with the outbreak of COVID-19. We saw products weren't on shelves, companies' supply chains were not as resilient. They were not able to keep products moving at the same pace with the outbreak of COVID-19. And so what you're seeing today is manufacturers trying to fast track their digitization efforts, right? They want to try to prevent future shocks or dampen those shocks. And really the only way to do that is to aggregate and contextualize data and then use that data to bring these three functions, procurement, supply chain, and product, together to make better, more informed decisions. And this decision abyss is exactly the void that LevaData is going after, to use data to contextualize it, to aggregate it and blend it, and then allow these highly trained participants in procurement and supply chain to actually use data to make better decisions. And so it's been a real challenge for these manufacturers over time, the last several decades, there just has not been that focus on data. And now fortunately, all things supply chain are very topical right now. And of course, that goes to procurement as well on the direct material sourcing side. So we're seeing this acknowledgement that the decision abyss is really hindering companies' growth, and data being at the forefront of being a remedy for the decision abyss.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, procurement professional and supply chain professional have lived the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years now. I don't even remember. Stop counting. But what you said is very true around, the wake-up call that COVID somehow triggered in many organizations, and the need for a new approach around data and processes and outside in. And I often use the quote of the CEO of car manufacturers here in Europe that illustrates your point, Keith. I think he said something around the lines, we're missing one chip that is like a few cents, and basically we cannot ship cars that are worth like 10,000 or even more, considering that brand, 100,000 euros. And I think that's basically the visible tip of the iceberg of that abyss you're talking about. And regarding that boost, that basically the boost for digital and digitalization that somehow COVID triggered, I think we really have exciting times ahead of us with regard to technology and how it is evolving. So, of course, I cannot not mention ChatGPT. It made the headlines of many outlets, and I think it made a lot of people realize what AI is today, what it's capable of, with the limitations, et cetera, but maybe more concretely, not talking about just ChatGPT, and more specifically related to the topic we were discussing at data and what you described before. How do you see AIs? I mean, its role in changing things and making procurement do things they were not able to do before.
Yeah, AI it's really in vogue now, and it's really at the heart of so many back office digital transformations. I think that the potential for AI is there, and I see a lot of companies and a lot of particularly technology companies trying to harness and embrace that. And AI will be a critical component to traverse this decision abyss. I mean, AI is, good algorithms, intuitive algorithms built on top of data, and self-learning algorithms on top of data. So that data fundamentals, the underlying aperture of good contextualized data, companies like LevaData are at the forefront of empowering AI. We use AI in our digitized workflows and around looking at different data that has been contextualized, and it's very powerful. So the promise of AI is incredibly compelling. I think it's going to completely transform the role of procurement over the next decade, and really procurement individuals will become more sought after and actually even more critical to their companies with the advent of AI. I don't see it replacing the human element that's required for procurement and supply chain teams, but I think it actually empowers the procurement professional to use data and the outputs of the AI algorithms. They'll continue to sort of innovate how they buy, how they source, how they bring to market products, how they manufacture. And really what we're talking about is digitizing all of these manual offline processes, from spreadsheets to emails to a few phone calls and a few contacts that sourcing professionals will have with a supplier. It's really codifying that digital workflow and then having insights on top of it. That's the promise of AI, actually leading the procurement professional in their thinking and allowing them to look at things perhaps differently than they are today. And so I'm incredibly excited about whether it's ChatGPT or our own AI algorithms that we have at LevaData, but the underlying fundamentals that make AI work is good, clean, contextualized data, which is where LevaData has spent the entire company's history on making sure we can quickly synthesize many, many disparate data sources, blend that, and then present that in a graphical user interface that allows people to actually look at it and infer and make decisions based on the AI algorithms. So I'm super excited about AI. It's everywhere now. It's transforming every industry. And for me, it's exciting to see it really on the bleeding edge for manufacturing, because I think manufacturers in particular can really use AI as a way to jumpstart their digitization efforts and take a big leap forward.
That's true. And I think the debate around, the impact of new tech in general, we had that in the past in other area around, automation and replacing people. I think the real perspective with AI, it's more not necessarily the pure automation, but it's more the augmentation. That's why sometimes I talk about augmentation, because it's a mix of automation and augmenting. And regarding augmenting and allowing teams to deliver even more value to the company, I think that the next question, and you started to elaborate around it, is how will technologies like LevaData, fueled by AI, have an impact on what procurement does? We talked about it, but also allow those teams to do better regarding, for example, supporting better sourcing and better with quote unquote in the sense of ESG and all the challenges we have ahead of us, and support the launch of better products. I'm sure you have tons of examples that you can talk about.
Yeah, I mean, at a high level, supply chain shocks will continue. And so we're coming off of, a big one with COVID-19, and then, there's a war in Ukraine and rising global interest rates. These are just the latest shocks that are impacting our supply chain. And what history's shown us is that these supply chain shocks will continue. But what is different now is really the admission that we can do something about these supply chain shocks. I mean, with the COVID onset, really exposed how little investment and resource is going into shoring up supply chains and direct material sourcing and procurement. And so, technologies like LevaData are empowering and giving these companies a chance to deliver a more resilient supply chain and cost savings from their direct materials sourcing entities. So it's incredibly exciting. What's not changing is manufacturing companies still have to make products. They still have to ship products. They have to stay competitive. And now what I have seen with technologies like LevaData is we're able to actually be topical and be fundable from the companies. Now supply chain is not an afterthought. So I'm old enough to have been in supply chain for a long time in procurement to know where oftentimes supply chain and procurement projects were kind of second shelf. They didn't get the primary billing. Sometimes they were delayed. These types of projects that pursued cost savings and risk mitigation were not funded. And what you're seeing now is a new, fresh wave of investment into companies and technologies like LevaData, using AI around direct material sourcing data. It's a topical discussion now, both at the C-suite and at the boardroom, because these are the types of technologies that manufacturers must embrace to stay competitive, to maintain their competitiveness, both on the cost side and just on the product delivery side. So as the world continues to evolve and there will be more supply shocks, more supply chain shocks, we know history shows us that. I'm seeing more and more companies embrace technology as a way to risk mitigate and get control over the pricing of their parts and their materials inside of their supply chain.
I was really shocked to hear that you said that things will not get better. It's like a shocker. But it's clear that volatility, uncertainty, and the whole VUCA thing will stay and will not disappear. And I think many organizations learned it the hard way, if I can say that, in the last years and months. And I think the real challenge, as you said, it's the risk cost, obviously, and product launch, but it's also about resilience and building anti-fragility. And you're right. I mean, getting the outside in terms of data, putting that into context with your own data and your own view of the world, if I can say that, together with the ability to process talking about a huge amount of data that we humans cannot really understand and comprehend. It's really, for me, a way for AI to bring something and allow organization to create, let's say, new knowledge, if you want to call it like that, and be able to constantly adapt to new situations. And that's definitely a huge impact. But the thing is, as you said, data is important. I know that LevaData started with certain categories. We focus on certain categories where basically a lot of data is available, I would say, semi-publicly, electronics and standard components. But I'd like to understand how you see that and how this could be extended to more than standard components, to like electronics.
Yeah, the LevaData team has spent years developing a data aperture that allows us to blend data from disparate data sets. And we're not talking one or two data sets. We're talking over 20 different types of data sets, 20 different languages of data, plus customer data. So this data blending, data contextualization, this is our sweet spot. And this is really, really hard to do. And we spent years doing it and getting it right and getting a certain velocity to it and being able to ingest and blend data, not just put data into a data blob, but actually understand the data. Because when you contextualize the data, you can then draw insights and apply AI algorithms on top of it. So today we do, off-the-shelf parts and components. We are now ingesting also plastic resins. So the future for us is to not only do parts, but to do resins. And when you know plastic resins and the spot price of that, and machine rates, you can now approximate custom parts. So we not only do the off-the-shelf parts, but we do custom parts. We're also ingesting metals data, so we can track metals and understand metals purchasing. So when you put the program together, it's parts, it's ingredients, and it's metals. And the future for us at LevaData, what we're going to do differently and better than most is we're going to know more about a part or an ingredient than anyone else on the planet. That is our mantra. We're staying on the component level, part level, resin level, which includes any type of ingredients for process manufacturing. And metals, there's a world of data here that we have a tremendous head start on, down to the manufacturing part number, the MPN and the CPN. We know more about that particular MPN than anybody else. So we're going to continue to build our analytics engine and our AI algorithms, knowing that we know more about these ingredients and parts than anybody else. And so it's an exciting time for us. We're going to continue to innovate with our AI algorithms, which are only getting better and smarter and adding more value to today's modern sourcing professional.
So exciting times. I mean, in general for the profession, but especially also for you, LevaData, with exciting plans. And I can only relate to that. It's a long time ago. It's already almost 20 years, but as a former buyer for mechanicals and mechanical components, this is the type of system I would have, dreamed of having, I would say. Better than spreadsheet, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And especially the insights on markets and being able to understand where things are going and not just where they were yesterday or 1 week or whatever before. That's the forward-looking approach that is very interesting and new insights. So Keith, thanks for the conversation. Very, very interesting. And especially to see how the tech in general and LevaData in particular is really impacting the profession to enable professionals to do things that they were not able to do before, just like me back in the days. As we mentioned, I think the last 2 or 3 years have shown how critical those capabilities and those insights are critical in order to continue to exist and perform and overperform. And basically what you told us is that the good news is that there is already existing and proven tech that is available. So that's great. So maybe my last question, a short one. People hearing the podcast and wanting to know more about you and wanting to get in touch with you or with LevaData, what should they do? Where could they find information to reach out?
Yeah, we're doing a couple of things at LevaData. Since we know more about a part than anybody else on the planet, I'm inviting and actually challenging companies to come forward with a few part numbers and allow us to show you the power of our system and the insights that our system can drive. So if people go to our website, they can upload a couple of part numbers or give us a couple of part numbers, and we give them a free data insights on one of those parts. So we actually invite people to inquire about what kind of data our system tracks and how we present that data. So they just go to levadata.com. It's called a part insight. I offer that to everybody. Take us for a spin, see what kind of data on a part that you care about. And we do that at scale. We've got customers with, tens of thousands, 100,000 parts loaded into the system, billions in spend under management. And so we're offering that today on our website, the LevaData Insight. So I would just invite you to reach out via the website and contact us and start a conversation about how we can help you and what type of information you can have by using the LevaData system on your parts and ingredients. And Bertrand, thank you for the time today. It's really been a pleasure speaking with you.
Same. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you. Cheers.